Hi, welcome to our fifth Facebook Live event. I'm Dr. Larry Seidman.
And I'm Dr. Tiffany Meyer.
And I am Beth Bostwick, family nurse practitioner.
And we'll be talking today about the top tips for the terrible twos and temper tantrums.
All right. So we are social distancing right now, and so we're going to remove our masks. So I have 11.5 and a 9.5-year-old, and so I've been through some temper tantrum issues with them. And
I have twin 7-year-old boys. I've also experienced many temper tantrums in my parenting.
And we have survived, so you can too. So don't be disheartened. But we're going to go through, our agenda really is we're going to go through a little bit of a brief overview of what tantrums are, some of the causes, when you can't ignore them, when you really got to take it seriously. And the biggest thing are the tips for survival, and then the light at the end of the tunnel. So would you like to start us off?
Sure. First of all, tantrums are really a normal part of development. There's a lot of times they're very common between the ages of 1 and 3, and it's usually during developmental times of their lives where they can't necessarily vocalize. Their language is not developed to the point to be able to make their needs known, and we as parents are asking them to do things that they can't verbalize, that they are objecting, things like that. They're very unpleasant and they are disruptive. A lot of times this is an inconvenience for the parent, for us, because we have agendas and we have things that need to be done, and our children go along with those, but they are definitely disruptive and can be very embarrassing at times. So they happen in the most inconvenient places, the grocery store, the department store, all of those things that and you get the looks, glaring looks across the aisles. Absolutely. Of, your child is screaming and you can't get a handle on it.
That's right.
But it's very normal. I think everyone that has had children knows that this is part of development.
Very normal part of development. And as Bostwick said, it's really, it's very likely to happen in places you just don't want it to happen. So
yeah, exactly.
So some of the causes, and some of these are obvious, right? So it could be an overtired toddler, it could be a hungry toddler, it could be even an older child who still has some tantrums, that they're hungry, they're tired. They could be just seeking attention. Sometimes they actually get negative reinforcement, meaning they get more attention the more they act out, so that they know that's a good way to get attention from mommy who's been working all day, and they miss mommy, and if I have a tantrum, mommy's going to pay attention to me.
Yep.
And then the last thing too is a young baby who is, as Beth said, can't really express their what's going on, but they're uncomfortable. Maybe they're in a wet diaper, a dirty diaper. They're hungry, as we said before. And as Beth already said, it really happens around this time of language development when kids are frustrated. They just can't express themselves. And really, tantrums become an easy way to kind of get out their frustration. So. And then, Beth, I'm going to talk to us a little bit about when should you not ignore these tantrums.
I think obviously you're not going to ignore these tantrums when it becomes they have a risk of harming themselves or harming you or harming someone else. So, for example, they may run out into the street, or the safety of them is very important, and they may know that there's an element of safety that they know, but they also, there are hard no's on, running out into the street, or and when that happens, you want to grab them tightly, hold them tightly, and you want to, for sure, reiterate that is not acceptable. Obviously, the hitting and biting, that's all part of tantrums too. Once again, those do kind of go in line with not being able to communicate their frustrations or what's happening, so they lash out in a hitting or biting manner. Those need to be stopped immediately. You have to be very consistent in that too. A lot of times I would grab my children's hands and look them and say no. I've even that definitely has happened, where you have to every time they do it, and on giving a punishment. I think that that is taking a consequence. Yeah, not punishment. I shouldn't say that, but consequence that usually is a timeout for a few minutes. I think the recommendation timeout is a minute per age is the recommendation for that, or taking a privilege away, especially as the kids get older. They may have privileges that they are able to do, taking those away for any tantrums that are not appropriate.
Right. And even just if you can, take them out of the situation, right? Yep. Move them to another room, take them away from what's kind of provoking that situation. And so now we're going to talk about some 8 tips to survive temper tantrums, right? You're not going to be able to avoid every tantrum, obviously, right? But these are things to kind of help you get through them a little more gracefully. Tip number 1. Beth,
tip number 1 would be to catch them being good, and giving them positive reinforcement wherever you can. And this positive reinforcement does not need to be long. It does not need to be elaborated. Just saying you did good. It takes 3 to 5 seconds is really the time frame that they say to catch them being good when they are doing what they're supposed to be doing, giving them that reinforcement of good behavior. You want to just give them the positive attention, and not having, when they are having the negative attention, they know that they can get your attention, and therefore trying to reverse that behavior.
That dynamic. And, it is okay to ignore some negative behavior, right? Yes. And a lot of times it's good to ignore negative behavior. And as we said, and we'll come up to this on one of the tips, you don't want to ignore really bad behavior, biting, hitting, kicking, punching, something like that. But it's okay to ignore tantrums. Like if someone's crying or they're trying to get your attention, it's okay as long as your child's safe to let them get through it, cry it out. And that's completely fine. And one last part of this tip is that there are some kids, and it's personality dependent, who may continue to have tantrums through the school age, right? Up through 2nd, 3rd grade maybe. But sometimes it's a personality thing. Sometimes they know they actually get a reaction from mom or dad when they have the tantrum. So that's another reason to ignore some of the tantrum behaviors. That the child's getting a positive attention reaction. They're getting attention from mom and dad, and so you don't want to play into that too much. And then tip number 2 actually is, during a tantrum, give your child control over little things. That doesn't mean that they're in control, but it does mean, let's say they are getting upset about what they're going to eat, and you can say to them, do you want an orange or a banana? Do you want to go to the park, or do you want to go to grandma's house? You can give them options. Little, and make it, of course, small options. Yes, not just a yes or no, but do you want A or B? And so they have a little control over the situation. And tip number 3?
Tip number 3 is obviously distraction, which Dr. Meyer has already brushed on, is that, offering a positive distraction, moving to a different room, moving to a different location, as silly as it is, sing a song, make it a joke, make some type of joke. And my family, when they are having a tantrum or they're really upset, our favorite thing to do is to tell them not to smile. Don't smile. Don't smile. You've been in trouble. You're done wrong, but don't smile. And inevitably, in a toddler or a young child, they will begin to smile and begin. And it's just getting them out of that frame of mind of the tantrum, the situation that they have become.
It breaks the tension. Right?
Breaks the tension. Exactly.
So absolutely. Tip number 4: choose your battles, right, and accommodate when you can. So you don't want to battle everything, obviously, with your child. You don't have the energy. They probably do have the energy, but you're not going to win every battle, and you're going to pick the battles that you want to choose, that you actually can win, obviously, but definitely pick your battles. Sometimes you give in a little just to kind of settle things down so it doesn't escalate. Now think about it too. Most tantrums do happen between the ages of 1 and 3, and just expect that to happen. But you want to pick your battles, right? You want to pick the ones that you can win. And the really key is consistency from day to day, right? Try to set consistent routines and consistent guidelines. Don't give in one day and then not give in the next day, because then the child gets confused too.
Yeah, consistency is very important in whatever you decide that. However, we're giving tips, by the way. None of these have to be concrete, and none of them have to
Right.
be done immediately. But
Right.
you guys discuss as a family as to how you're going to address these
That's
tantrums, and figuring out how, maybe one or two of these tips can help, and then everyone has to be on board. Mom,
Right.
dad, grandma, grandpa, anyone who's living in the house, because
Right.
if one parent is doing it and the other parent isn't doing it, you're just going to have this vicious cycle of the kids still
Absolutely.
continuing to tantrum, and you've gotten nowhere, and just
Right.
more frustrated. And then you're going to come back to our office and say, I tried.
Right.
And I'm going to
Right.
say, oh, this is not good.
Well, and
This is
it's
frustrating.
It is absolutely frustrating, and you realize kids are smart. They're super smart.
Super
If
smart.
they know grandma or dad or somebody's going to give them what they want, they'll go directly to that person and they'll bypass mom. And so
Yeah.
you gotta try to everybody. I know it's hard, but to be on the same page.
Same page, exactly.
And tip number 5. So know your child's limits, right? Obviously, some days are going to be harder than the others, and you don't have to get everything done on your to-do list for that day. If you just get through the day and you survive and you can give each other hugs at the end of the day, that's great. Don't sometimes you as a parent have so much on your agenda. Oh, I want to do this, and your child just isn't ready for it that day. Just move it to the next day. Don't feel like you have to get everything done.
A lot of times, and we haven't mentioned this yet, but kids sometimes have tantrums also in transitioning from one event to another.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of times where they may get involved with something that you're doing or the agenda that you're on, and then you have to leave. So giving your child, that heads up that we're only here for 10 minutes, we're only here for 5 more minutes, giving them that opportunity to accept that the transition's happening. We're going to be moving. We're going to be changing whatever environment or wherever we're going. And that can sometimes help diffuse a tantrum, like setting them up for
Absolutely.
success.
That's absolutely a very, very important point. Many kids really need that transition, that heads up, and it really, as an adult, you would appreciate that too. So you tell your child if it's you have to get somewhere. You give them a 10-minute warning if they're playing. You have 10 minutes, but we're leaving in 10 minutes. And then you have to stick to it, right? So, or let's say your child is on, electronics, and you're saying you got 10 more minutes. You stick to that. So you give them a heads up. It is very difficult for a child if you say to them, oh, you gotta pick things up and go right this minute. Think about that. If someone said that to you, it'd be difficult for
Right.
you too. So keep them in mind. They are, little people too. They need that transition time.
Yeah, which kind of goes into the tip 7.
Yes.
Tip 7 is to kind of be prepared.
Right.
If tantrums peak during times of your child's hungry, that lunchtime's coming, that dinner time's coming, and
Right.
that is a peak for them.
Yeah.
Being prepared
Right.
ahead of time with a healthy snack or food on the go is probably beneficial
Absolutely.
to defusing that before it even begins. That would be helpful, but that takes a lot of planning and with our crazy world, and
It can be difficult.
it's difficult.
Yes. But the more planning you can do, obviously, the easier for everybody.
Yeah.
And that also means that if it's your child's nap time and you're supposed to be doing something or going to a party, it may be something that you have to not to skip, right? So for everybody's sanity, it's probably better not to interrupt nap time if your child is really, really needs that nap and is going to melt down.
Yeah, I was guilty. My family always made fun of me that I was the sleep Nazi.
Well,
I was very, very regimented on my sleep, and I would not. Just felt that was time for
Right.
them. It's time for me. It was
Right.
just a good thing for them to just be in a routine of sleep and, trying to diffuse. They're much better. They're happier when they've had a good nap.
Right, and everyone
gets
knows
you through-
that, right? It
gets you
just
through the
makes
rest of the day.
So it's so much easier if you stick to your routines.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then this one other thing to go back to a tip is, and we kind of touched on this before, but not ignoring the bad behaviors, right? The hitting, the kicking, the biting, the throwing. That's a 0 tolerance policy, right? If they do that, that's a consequence. That's a timeout. That's a remove out of the situation. Mommy's upset with you. And we're not gonna tolerate that. So.
Yeah. I don't have to be.
And then so tip number 8 is giving yourself a break, right? We all need a break, right? And knowing your limits too, right? So So you're getting, and rightly so, you're getting upset with your child because he or she is having this tantrum. Sometimes you need to take a break, walk out of the room, take a breath, come back in, or also enlist family or friends, right? So if you need a break, gosh, I've been with my child all week, I really do just need a little me time. Try to enlist a family member or friend to give you a little me time also. So and you come back as a better parent. So.
Yes, absolutely. And I would also, as the children get older, because some kids do tantrum into young childhood, elementary, even older children do tantrum in their own way. They know how to get their way, and they will do things that will,
They may even fall on the floor and cry, even as an older child, right? Because they're frustrated, they're tired, they're hungry, and gosh, yeah, they're familiar with doing that. They did it when they were younger. So
yeah. But I would also say that I would give, as much as I need a minute, I tell my child, I need a minute, you need a minute. Go to your bedroom for 5 minutes.
Right.
Let's reconvene. We'll talk about this again when everyone's calm.
And it really does give you a minute to recollect yourself, and it diffuses the situation.
Right.
So absolutely. We have one last thing we want to discuss, and we're going to take a question or two here. So our last thing we wanted to say is there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Please don't despair. As we said, tantrums are very prevalent in the 1 to 3-year-old range, but they do get better. And they do get better, and you get through them. And using these tips are really, really helpful. The best thing is really just to try to remain calm. And as we said, use your family and friends too as support, right? Maybe have a play date, even if it's just you and another parent talking while 2 kids are playing. And I know in this social distancing time, we kind of have to kind of take that into consideration, which we can't do as much, right? But when things do get back to where we can spend more time with other folks, that's another way to do it. And I think for now in social distancing, at least if you have another family member that's in your bubble, that's in your quarantine group, you can at least have them take some time with your child, so you can take a little me time also. So absolutely. Anything you wanted to add to that?
No, it does take time. It takes effort.
Yeah.
I always tell families that when you're going to implement change, it stinks for the first couple of days.
Yeah.
But once the child understands that they're not going to get their way and they're not going to, do the bad behavior, it does get better. They say adults, it takes 21 days to change a habit.
Sure.
For children, it does take it's less, and it does stink the first couple of days. But if you can commit the time and commit the effort, and everyone's on board, and consistency,
right?
It's going to get better.
It will get better. And we actually got a question here about what about potty training. So that's actually a whole talk in itself, which we'll consider putting together. But just to kind of put potty training into the temper tantrum perspective. So we've been through the potty training with our children. It can be a chore. One of my daughters, I won't name names, but one of my daughters was more stubborn with it, and she took longer, and the other one was a little quicker at it. And the really main thought behind it is really not to push your child, right? So if they're having a tantrum, if they're pushing back, they're not emotionally ready. Maybe they're physically, they could do it, and maybe that's the frustrating part, that they've done it before, they can do it, but they just won't do it consistently. I know there's sometimes, like going to kindergarten, they got to be potty trained, right? Or sometimes going to a preschool or daycare, they have to be potty trained, right? I mean, that's a requirement. But for the most part, if you can wait it out and let the child kind of go at his or her own pace, it really goes much more smoothly. There are books that you can read, obviously, with your child, and that you can read by yourself. Elmo has obviously always been a good instructor in potty training. He's good that kids like to listen to Elmo. And there are, different encouragements that you can do for potty training. And temper tantrums absolutely will come up with potty training. Some kids have just a personality where they're going to do it when they want to do it. And that's the best thing in that situation, is not to push them too hard. And so if you're getting the tantrum, it's best to back off by a few weeks, a month or two, and then try it again. And so that it really is kind of go at their pace.
I totally agree with that. I think that we have more negative results for pushing a child too early, or that you think that they should be potty trained because that's the age that they're at. It causes a lot of anxiety, and it causes a lot of other symptoms that we start to see because they're just not ready. And it is a somewhat of a control thing. So it's one of those things that they'll do it when they need to do it, and when you can talk to them and you can encourage them and you can but at that age they don't really understand the whole process. They just know that you're wanting them to do something that they're not ready to do. So I think to be the least stressed about it is best.
That's absolutely right. And as we said in one of our tips for tantrums, you can give them choices.
Sure.
Do you want to sit on the toilet, on the potty on the toilet, or do you want to sit on the potty on the floor?
Right.
Do you want to try it this morning? Do you want to try it this evening? So, give them an A or B choice and see, and if they don't react to that, don't push them too hard, but you can give them A, B choices and see if they will. That helps kind of encourage them too.
And just say if they don't want to do either, and we'll try again tomorrow.
Right.
There's always tomorrow, so we'll try again tomorrow.
That's your to-do list, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to always be done that day.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, and an obvious thing is, obviously don't try it when they're hungry or they're tired, right? So don't pick it right. Try to do it right before nap time or something. And potty training too. This is of course another talk. But you can try to sit them on the potty at a certain time each day, in the evening before bed or something like that. So, but that's another talk that we can put together.
Sure.
Yes. So we are here. This is our 5th Facebook Live, and we enjoy explaining stuff and trying to get our information out, getting information out to the community, and we are here for you.
Here for you.
Just and last thing I just want to say is that we are doing telemedicine visits. So and we are following the CDC guidelines to keep our offices safe. So we are doing well visits. We do not want our young folks and our young babies and our kids to not stay up to date in their physicals and their immunizations. So please feel free to call and schedule that physical, and we are doing everything possible to keep the office clean. We are a flow. You're not interacting with other families, so it is a very safe environment. Thank you.
Thank you.